Okay, I want to make it very clear that you absolutely can change your life with what I'm about to tell you, but only if you take action on it. Just watching this video and not making any change in your life is not going to result in any change in your life. So put your phone away somewhere you can't see it, grab a paper and a pencil, and sit down and pay attention. So the core idea of what we're talking about today is that your brain processes external reality, things that you touch, sense, hear, taste, feel, and internal reality, whether that's a memory of the past or imagination of the future, it's all processed the same way, as if it's happening right now. By shifting the way that your brain filters these things, whether it's internal or external, results in a completely different experience of life. So I spent my young adulthood constantly in negative internal loops. I was anxious, I was fearful, I was a habitual substance user by the time I was 14, and by the time I was 16, I really just felt I did not care if I woke up tomorrow or not. I visualized ending my life on a daily basis, and I cycled for years between trying to build a good life and falling back into bad habits. Eventually, I started a commission only sales job, went from being a bottom performer to a top performer, earning 80K in commissions in 1 month, which never ended up getting paid out. So I crashed back into the same negative loops I had established as a teenager. And so the reason I'm here talking today is because after spending so many years building myself up and then falling apart again, I've developed a clear system on how to build a rock solid internal state and to create and maintain momentum and purpose in life. So this video is for you if you're at its core tired of repeating patterns in your life that you see and you want to change. If your body is constantly tense, tired, or in chronic pain, if your mind is foggy, anxious, or running on negative loops, if your actions are impulsive, you're avoiding things you know you should be doing, and you're undisciplined, if your relationships suffer because of that, if you're a poor communicator, don't set or respect other people's boundaries, and you're lashing out at others. Really, if you know you're capable of more, but you can't seem to break through, and at its core, you're reacting to your life instead of taking the role of its creator. So, what is the nervous system? How does it work, and why is that important? Today, we're speaking particularly about the autonomic nervous system. This is the subconscious. So this is responsible thing for things like breathing, heart rate, digestion, things that we think of as not having a say in. This autonomic nervous system breaks down into two main components, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems. The sympathetic is your fight, flight, or freeze response. So this activates with stress or perceived danger. Perceived is really important because it can be real, external, or imagined, like we talked about. This is your survival system. So this is designed, let's say you're walking down a path as a pre-human and a tiger pops out from behind a bush. This is designed to get you away from that tiger. You don't need to think. You don't need to consider how you feel or other people feel. You just need to act and get away without thinking. So when it activates, your heart rate increases, blood redirects from your brain to your muscles, which reduces your logical thinking, so you can't plan or reason clearly for the future. Your digestion slows down, so if you constantly feel you have a tight or heavy stomach or butterflies before a anxiety-inducing event, along with that, muscles tense up, especially in your jaw, neck, shoulders, your back, and impulse control drops because the blood is rushing from your brain to other areas of your body. This system is designed to put you in a state where you're not thinking things through, and so decision making is impaired. Because of this, it's also harder to read social cues from other people, it's harder to connect with others, and it's harder to feel empathy. So this whole system is designed to put you in a state where you react without thinking. You don't need to contemplate your feelings when there's a tiger, but the problem is your body can't tell the difference between an external tiger or an internal perceived danger. which puts you in a state of chronic stress. On the other side of this, we have the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest function. This is where you're calm, present focus, grounded, where you're able to think logically and clearly to set goals and see a vision for yourself and your future. Along with that, when you're in this state, impulse control is restored. You can actually think things through and make clear decisions. And along with that, since you're relaxed and present, it's a lot easier to connect and communicate with others in your life. This is where recovery and energy building happens. The sympathetic nervous system is where energy burning and energy usage happens. So there's nothing that you can do to avoid pain or stress in life, but you can avoid suffering. You can avoid chronic stress. The switch between these two systems is called the vagus nerve. So it's a large nerve that connects your brain to these areas of your body. And it goes from the brain to the body and also from these areas, from your body back to the brain. 80% of the signals going through this nerve, signaling whether or not you're in fight or flight, come from the body back up to the mind. When the vagus nerve is activated, that's when you're in parasympathetic. When it's blocked, that's when you're in fight or flight or sympathetic. So, what is nervous system regulation? Regulation is the ability to bounce back from an activated fight or flight mode. It's very important that the system does work. It's impossible and unhealthy to avoid, stressors or act like nothing gets to you in that sense. It's about how quickly you return to rest and digest mode after that activation. So, how do these patterns get locked in? The way things are communicated through the system is through something called neurons. Let's say you think a thought that puts your body into fight or flight. The way that is communicated to your body for all these symptoms, heart rate to increase, your body to tense up, is communicated is electrical signals that travel through your body through neurons. When you have a new thought, new experience, or a new emotion, there's a bridge built between new neurons that didn't exist before. Now this pathway is established and it makes it easier to go back down the same pathway again. So let's say there are certain internal patterns that can lead you to generally building energy and feeling good, or losing energy and feeling bad. So when you deal with a scenario or something and you go down the negative pathway, that becomes an established route. So you go through down, imagine it like a grass field, right? Where there's tall grass on either side. Going one way is going to be uncomfortable, going the other way is going to be uncomfortable. But when you establish that new connection, the first time you walk through, there's a faint trail towards these negative processes. It's not impossible to redirect and go towards something that is serving you, but it is harder because it's perceived as safer to go down an established path. You can always go back through the tall grass to something that is serving you, but it's harder and more uncomfortable from a neurological standpoint. And the thing is that the more you go down that same pathway, the deeper and deeper this path is established, and the harder and harder it gets to redirect yourself to go back through the tall grass and end up in a state that's serving you. So how does this actually look, and how does this show up in real life? So let me give an example. Let's say you're at a family dinner and somebody makes a comment. Maybe it's about your job, your relationship, your choices. It's not even that bad, but it's enough, right? So this comment lands. It can be external or imagined. And your body goes into this response. Your brain registers as a threat and your body responds. Fight or flight is activated. Your chest tightens up, your jaw clenches, heat rises in your face, heart rate spikes, blood leaves your brain, fight or flight is activated, logic is shutting down. So you react and blow up. You start an argument or say the snippy thing. You're not thinking things through and choosing a response. You're reacting to the stimulus, or you shut down completely and go right into your head, which is where the spiral of an internal negative voice begins. You get into your head and you say things like, I wish I wasn't such an idiot. This is why I'll never be successful. I can't do anything right. This is why my ex left me. I hate myself. Each thought leads into the next, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. And now you're thinking about your ex, you're thinking about your career, and every way you've ever fallen short or embarrassed yourself. And odds are none of what you're thinking about at this point had anything to do with the comment at dinner, but this path is established. Fight or flight kicks in, you have one negative thought, you react, and then you trigger this internal downward spiral. And like we talked about at the start, your brain doesn't know the difference between having these experiences externally for the first time or the 100th time that you're reliving them inside your head. So the thoughts themselves that you're having become stressors. So your body is still tense, your jaw is still clenched, shoulders tight, breathing heavy. The 80% of the signals going from your body to your brain is signaling to your mind that you're still in danger, but you're not, right? The moment passed 10 minutes ago, 10 days ago, or 10 years ago. You're just sitting in your head completely disconnected from what's actually happening around you. And that doesn't feel good, right? So it tends to lead to impulsive and coping behaviors. This could be doom scrolling for hours, watching pornography, using weed, drinking alcohol, even starting arguments or fights blaming other people for your own life. And so you're not choosing, responding, and processing, you're coping, right? You're trying to quiet this voice, you're trying to numb this discomfort. And in the moment, it's just enough to distract you from how you've been feeling, which leads to a little bit of temporary relief. Let's say you smoke some weed, the scrolling numbs you enough, you get that little bit of dopamine from hitting your dab pen. And along with that, being right feels good even if it doesn't serve you. So, for example, let's say that you're trying to quit weed and you've gone a day without smoking, but somewhere inside of you, you believe that you'll never be able to actually quit. And then a stressor happens, you go back through this ingrained process, and then you end up smoking again. And then you get that little bit of satisfaction where even though being right isn't serving you or making your life better, you're like, look, like I knew I couldn't quit. I was right. And being right feels good even if it doesn't make your life better. The final step and what this leads to is chronic exhaustion. Every step in this process burns energy because it keeps you in fight or flight. Every step lowers your internal energy, and the less energy you have, the more likely you are to default to these deeply ingrained neural pathways again and again. And so the less energy you have, the harder it is to redirect yourself back through the tall grass and redirect your thought patterns to something that's energizing and serving you. Along with that, when you're in this state of chronic exhaustion, you become addicted to the energy of being in a flight or fight mode because the adrenaline from reacting and responding in this way is the only time that you actually feel alive and energized. So that's partially why you see people, maybe it's an aunt or uncle in their 40s, 50s, 60s, that have a tiny stressor happen and it just automatically triggers a explosion because they lose it and they're dealing with 40 years of this ingrained pattern. So how do we actually want this to go? Let's say it's the exact same scenario, exact same person with a different internal state. So same dinner, same comment about your job, relationship, your choices, whatever it is. Comment still hits, fight or flight is still activated. This doesn't change, right? This should happen. It's a healthy response. So your shoulders tighten up, your heart clenches. It's important that this function works because let's say there really was a tiger on the path and that's what's triggering their response. You need that response to get out of there. But instead of disconnecting from the present moment and going straight into a negative internal voice, which is dissociating from what's actually happening in the present, you come into the present moment and become aware of what you're actually experiencing right now. Instead of building a internal story to connect the dots of this experience to past experiences and imagining future negative experiences where this happens again, you come into the present and notice things like my jaw is clenched, I'm holding my breath. Stay with the sensation of what's actually going on and happening in your body right now. Take a third party perspective on your own experience. And when you stay present for that moment, it allows enough space internally to avoid that explosive reaction or automatic dissociation. And from here, you can actually choose how you want to respond to the scenario. You're not running on adrenaline and spitting out a reaction that you haven't thought through. You're present focused, which means you actually have options. Maybe you take a second to gather your thoughts and respond clearly, calmly, and directly. You're not reacting, you're processing and responding. Being a regulated person doesn't mean that you just take bullshit from people. It's exactly the opposite. Communicating clearly and setting boundaries is an essential part of regulating your nervous system. Maybe you don't say anything. Maybe you stay, maybe excuse yourself from the table. I'm not trying to teach you how to deal with family, issues and arguments. I'm trying to teach you how to position your internal state to build confidence and energy. And then now you turn into regulation and your system can actually settle. Because you didn't go into that downward spiral, you handled what needed to be handled at the time. The activation can be processed instead of trapped and locked into fight or flight in your body. So there are ways to bring yourself back to baseline, activate your vagus nerve, switch back into rest and digest. It's not about pushing down the emotions or the experience that you just had. It's about how to signal your nervous system to return back to safety. And from there, integrate this experience. People talk about becoming delusional to achieve goals and become who you want to be. But the difference between just being flat out crazy and being delusional in that sense is beginning the process of building a mountain of proof to prove to yourself that you are who your delusions say you are. And you are now somebody who responds to stressors with calm, presence, and clarity. So this begins integrating into your identity and your confidence builds up. You're now somebody who can handle whatever comes your way. Your body relaxes, it signals safety back to your brain, and you're able to rebuild your energy by sleeping well, resting well, and digesting well. And each time you go through this process, you ingrain a neural pathway that builds energy, right? Because you can go through these triggers and then come back into recovering that energy instead of constantly staying in a state of chronic stress and chronic flight or fight. So that's the difference, right? Same person, same scenario, handled internally in a different way. So, how do we actually make that shift? If you're in this state of chronic stress and fight or flight right now, the first step is to have an internal foundational reframe. The goal of what you're doing is to rebuild energy. Once you have energy, you can direct it in changing your life in different ways. But first, you need to stop leaks in this energy. So, obviously, sleep. You have to have a morning and evening routine. Set your circadian rhythm, and along with that, practice gratitude as you're going to sleep to shift your subconscious to new neural pathways. In your sleep, your brain embeds your thoughts, feelings, and emotions from the day from your conscious mind into your subconscious mind. And by practicing gratitude before bed, you can start gently rewiring your internal systems. Along with that, rebuild your gut microbiome and establish energizing eating habits. The whole point here is plugging leaks in your energy. Along with that, your breathing. Make sure that throughout the day, you are breathing deeply and fully in and out. When you need to calm down or you're feeling overstimulated, exhale for longer than you inhale. When you're feeling understimulated or like you need to wake up, inhale for longer than you exhale. While you're going through this process of plugging the leaks in your energy, build awareness of the thoughts that you're having, the way that you react to those thoughts, the way that pain and tension shows up in your body in relation to the thoughts and reactions that you're having. Write these things down. Get a small notebook like this and literally carry it around in your pocket. When you feel like you want to pull out your phone and go on social media, ask yourself, am I actually accomplishing something by doing this, or am I trying to distract myself? If the answer is trying to distract myself, instead of pulling out your phone, pull up this notebook and write down what you're trying to distract yourself from. Another huge leak in energy is open loops, right? So figure out what recurring thoughts that you're having. If you need to clean your room, clean your room. If you need to have a conversation, it's time to start actively regulating once you've plugged these leaks in your energy. Then you get to actively regulating your nervous system. This is where you need to learn how to set and express clear boundaries with people, close loops and conversations that you need to have so they're not draining your energy anymore, and connect with people that energize and empower you. Learn how to activate your vagus nerve, downregulate your nervous system. Things like humming, similar to Tibetan throat singing, a really deep, chesty hum, kind of like activates your vagus nerve and helps activate rest and digest. Along with that, breathwork practices, I personally really like the Wim Hof breathing method because you get to practice going from a fight or flight mode back to a regulated state. Along with that, now that you have awareness of the negative mental loops, rewire those towards positivity and come into the present moment and take action. Plan your day every day the night before, direct your newfound energy to closing loops, and build momentum creating your life. So now you've gone through this process, you've plugged leaks and become aware of your internal state. You've learned how to regulate that and redirect your internal voice. And now you're present focused. So it's time to take that energy that you have and embed empowering beliefs. When we talk about the filter that your brain uses to build your experience and understand your reality, what that filter is your beliefs. So if you believe that you're awkward, when you have a social situation, you're going to look for reasons to feel like you were awkward. You're going to look to empower that belief, to support it. If you hold the belief that I'm smooth and clear, then in the exact same situation, you're going to be looking for different proof to prove and support this belief. So just to give you an example, obviously we all know what a Coca-Cola can looks like. It's red. The background is kind of funky and blue here, but we understand and believe that a Coca-Cola can is red. So when I zoom in, though, there's actually no red on this image. It's just black, white, and blue. But we've seen Coca-Cola cans so many times, and we believe that they're red, so it's just easy for our brain to fill in red. Along with that, take a second, look around your room. You can pause this video, count the amount of red items that you see throughout the room. Okay, and then come back to paying attention to me. How many brown items did you see in the room? You have no idea because you are looking for red. You are focused on red. That's what you see. If you're looking for reasons that you're awkward and you're focused on reasons you're awkward, that's what you see. If you're looking for reasons that you're smooth and clear and that's what you're focused on, that's what you'll see as well. So stop asking what is true or not, because maybe you are awkward at this point. The question is, does this belief serve me? Because you're never going to escape being awkward if you have an embedded belief. So go through the main four areas of life: your faith, relationships, your health, and your finances, and ask yourself, what is my belief in this area? Am I genuinely happy with this area of my life? And what uplifting belief can I craft instead? I genuinely believe that throughout this process, as you plug leaks in your energy, regulate yourself, and embed empowering beliefs, your purpose will present itself to you. Of course, you may not feel like you're living a purposeful life if you're in a chronic state of stress and fight or flight. How can you have a clear purpose or think forward to the future when you're constantly exhausted? So you'll find purpose throughout this process, but for people who want to dive into that a little bit more, reflect into your past. What energizes me? What gets my heart beating? What excited me as a kid? What excites me now? And what can't I accept? I've come to this point in my life where I'm able to speak on and teach these things because I realized if I didn't put the time, energy, and effort into rewiring my internal state, that I would spend the rest of my life in the internal and physical pain that came as a result of my mental state. And I found my purpose through changing my life around what I cannot accept. Along with that, how can I serve other people? What's needed? What are my unique gifts? And what sort of impact and legacy do I want to have? Journal on these things, and you'll come into what your purpose is. But if you're resonating with these negative mental loops, your purpose right now is to go through this process and rebuild your essential energy. I hope this helped. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a DM on Instagram, and I answer them all personally there. I hope this helped.